Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ella and I thought today I would give you some recommendations for easy classics to read if you are a beginner to classic literature. So yeah, we've got varying genres of classics here. These are all going to be very easy for beginners to read. I want you to read all of them. That is your homework assignment. And yeah, this is where you should start. I have the definitive recommendation list, okay? So let's hop into it. We're gonna start with the children's classics. The first book we're going to recommend today is going to be The Wind in the Willows. I know you can't see the title because there's not one here. This is a folio edition, so it's a little different than a normal one. The next like 3 or 4 are gonna be like this with no title really on the cover. But it is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. So this is a great one to start with because it is a children's classic. It's super fun, it's super easy to read, and it's like a very sweet story. It follows Mole, the main character. They're all animals, but they do behave sort of like humans. So Mole decides to, instead of doing his spring cleaning in his little hole like he does every year, he instead goes out to the river to meet up with his friend Rat, and he spends the spring and the summer with the rat, which is like a river rat. And they make friends and do things with other animal characters like Toad of Toad Hall. Toad is a very rich toad, but he's not very smart, so he gets into a lot of hijinks, and eventually that's going to catch up with him, and Mole and Rat and another friend, Mr. Badger, are going to have to step in and help Toad out. But it is a very easy to read story. It's very sweet, very cute, and it is a children's classic, so it's a classic. There you go. Great way to start. The next one is going to be The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Out of all these books, honestly, The Secret Garden is going to be my #1 rec to you because The Wind in the Willows is very, very cute and sweet, but The Secret Garden is maybe a little cuter. I don't know. The vibes are a little different. If you're like a cottagecore fairy girly, you'll probably like this one because of the titular title, The Secret Garden. It follows the main character, Mary, who was recently orphaned by her wealthy parents. Mary, because she comes from a wealthy family, is a brat. She has only ever been raised by servants who were very obedient to her because they were employed by her rich parents. So when she is sent off to her uncle's manor because her parents die, not really a spoiler, it happens at the very beginning, she is now subject to servants who aren't quite so obedient to her, and she has to sort of make her way through becoming a nicer child, not so much of a brat. And she is kind of all alone. She takes to exploring the manor and she finds the secret garden. And this is where she's going to learn to maybe take care of things besides herself and be nice and kind. And it's very cute. The secret garden is awesome. I wish I had a secret garden. There are other characters, other children she's going to interact with, namely her sick cousin who also lives in the manor, and they have a very sweet relationship, and they both grow and learn a lot throughout the story. So, The Secret Garden, very, very good, very cute. You should read it. Alrighty, the next one is going to be The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. So if you are wanting to read Mark Twain, but you're kind of intimidated like I am, this is still the only Mark Twain I've ever read, read this one because this one is a children's story. Think Parent Trap. It is The Prince and the Pauper, as you can tell from the title, are twins who are separated, I guess, at birth. And one grows up to be a prince, one grows up to be a pauper, as the title implies, but at some point they get switched and the other gets to live the opposite life, and they both are gonna learn maybe how to appreciate what they had, and obviously this is gonna be a happy ending for the pauper if he gets to live with the prince obviously being a pauper sucks ass. So it's a very good story. It's very easy to read as well. There's not like heavy language or like old-timey language. So definitely check this one out if you want to read some Mark Twain. All right, this is going to be our one fantasy on this list of classics, and that is going to be The Hobbit. You can't tell from this because it's not on the cover. It's right there. But The Hobbit, you should already know everything about The Hobbit. I'm not really going to explain it to you. It is like the prequel-esque to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They're connected, but you don't have to read the Lord of the Rings after this. You could just read this by itself. It's short. It is very, very well written, clearly. You should probably already know that. But if you haven't read it, like you've seen the movies, like the Lord of the Rings movies, first of all, you should definitely be watching the extended edition of those movies. But you should read The Hobbit. I personally really like the Hobbit movies. I know, sort of controversial. I don't know why. I thought they were great. They follow the book pretty well. But definitely check this one out if you want to read a fantasy classic, because it's very easy to read and very popular, and then you can watch the movies. I don't know if this next one counts as a children's classic. I think technically it is a children's classic, but that is going to be The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So The Lord of the Flies, think Lost, the TV show, meets maybe Hunger Games, except there are no like trials or anything. But it is about a plane full of young boys who crash on an abandoned island, and there are no adults there to supervise them or guide them. It's just an island full of young boys. It is in the beginning it takes maybe 1 or 2 chapters to sort of grasp the way it's written, but it isn't that difficult to read. But maybe this could be like your 3rd or your 4th after you read the other children's classics. This one is really, really interesting. It sort of delves into how a society maybe is formed and how it collapses and what people will act like when they think there are no consequences, really. So you should check this one out. I think it has a really good, interesting story and an interesting ending as well. Next up, we have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Look at that. That is the movie picture you're seeing right there, because it is a movie, by Ken Kesey. That is Jack Nicholson right there on the movie cover. I actually really like this edition. So if you haven't seen the movie, first of all, I highly recommend seeing the movie. It's a very, very good movie. Honestly, the movie's slightly better than the book, just because the book is told from the narrative of Chief Bromden. And Chief Bromden is a Native American who is in a psychiatric ward. I guess they probably call it an asylum or a mental hospital in this book, because it's in the 60s. So it's told from his point of view. He is the narrator, but he's not the main character. Sort of. He sort of is in the end, but the main character is actually Randall McMurphy. That is who Jack Nicholson plays in the movie. So Randall McMurphy is sent to this asylum to avoid being sent to prison. He commits a crime. Pretty sure it's a actually violent, horrible crime, and he's not a great character, like not a good guy. But he fakes being insane so he can be sent to the mental asylum, because he thinks that will be better for him than going to prison. He thinks he'll get out sooner. He thinks it'll be cushy, like a fun vacation. But he quickly realizes that is not going to be the case when he comes up against Nurse Ratched. And there is a TV show on Netflix called Ratched, which I think is sort of supposed to be, it's not the same character exactly. It's, I guess, sort of inspired by this character. So if you've seen that show by the same people who make American Horror Story, that's where that character comes from, is this book. So yeah, I think you should read this one. Alrighty, this one you probably read in high school, but if you read it in high school, you're gonna read it again. Okay, I'm telling you right now, you need to read it again. And that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, or Zelda Fitzgerald. Anyway, if you read it in high school and you didn't like it, that's fine, because you were forced to read it, and being forced to do something makes it less fun. But you should read it again, because it's actually a really, really good story. So it follows Gatsby and his love for Daisy, who I am kind of a big hater of. Sorry, Daisy, not a fangirl. Gatsby tries to gain all of this wealth to win the love of Daisy because he loved her when he was poor and they couldn't be together because she comes from a wealthy family. So he thought, okay, I'll get rich and that will win her over. So it sort of just follows their story, Daisy and Gatsby, and what maybe goes wrong and why they are fated to be or not to be. So check this one out. The next one is also a very, very good one, and that is The Pearl by Steinbeck. Also famous author like Mark Twain. If you want to read some of these famous authors' books, but you're kind of intimidated by the bigger ones, try these recs I'm giving you. The Pearl is very, very short. It's less than 150 pages, but it's very, very good. It follows this Native American family. I think it takes place in maybe like the 20s or the 30s. I'm not 100% sure. It follows this family of Native Americans who live on the beach with their tribe or clan. I'm not sure what you would say. But their profession sort of is fishing for pearls in the ocean and fish. And that's how they make their money and sustain their community. So one day, the titular character goes out and he gets the greatest pearl of all time, the most valuable pearl in the world. And he tries to sell it so he can take his family out of this not so great situation and put them in a real house and get the things that they need. But nobody wants to buy it from him specifically because he's a Native American and they're treated very, very poorly. They're gonna lowball him and he's not gonna fall for that. So it basically is gonna follow his story and his family's story of what is more valuable, this pearl, the greatest pearl in the world, or maybe their family, and maybe the consequences of trying to have it all, I guess. But it's very short, it's very fast, it's very, very good. You should check this one out as well. Okay, these next three are actually some of my all-time favorites. So first we're gonna do The Stranger by Albert Camus. The Stranger is pretty basic level philosophy type of a book. The main character is sort of apathetic to everyone around him. He doesn't really get the meaning of life and why we do things. He doesn't really value life or why we do things. He sort of falls into this situation, we'll say, where he is tested. If he would just conform to what society wants him to do, he would get out of this very bad situation. But he doesn't see a reason to, so he doesn't. And that's kind of the way he acts throughout the whole story. He's like, why should I do something when it doesn't make any sense? It doesn't matter to me. So it's just very interesting philosophy, very interesting story, kind of nihilistic existentialism, sort of. I really, really like it. The vibes are very, very good for me personally because I like a gloomy time. But yes, if you're looking to get into Albert Camus or like beginner level philosophy classics, you should start with The Stranger. The next one is The Awakening, and look at this cover. It's actually so gorgeous, by Kate Chopin. I do have some tabbies in this one because I really, really love it. Even though I only gave it like 3.5 stars, maybe I should bump it up to a 4 now that I think about it. So, The Awakening follows Edna, and Edna is married with a husband. She's got 2 or 3 kids, but it's gonna follow her awakening, where she comes to be her own person after being someone she thought she had to be for 20 or 30 years of her life. She comes to realize, you know what? I don't really care that much about my husband. I like this hot little thing over here that I met on the island because they're all rich, of course. And she starts a affair with another man, and she's like, okay, this is who I want to be. I don't want to be with my husband. I want to be with this man. I don't know if I care that much about my kids. I guess I do, but I don't care enough to sacrifice my needs and wants. So this is my awakening into a sentient person or a sentient woman. It's very interesting. It's very good for the time that it came out. I think it was first published in 1899. So kind of revolutionary stuff for this time, where a woman is kind of becoming independent in her own right, separate from her husband and her children. So very, very good. I highly, highly recommend this one. And then the last one, this is for my gothic lover girlies. This one is going to be We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I don't know if I mentioned this in my favorites video. I might have. I'm sorry if I'm beating a dead horse. But I think this is Shirley Jackson's superior novel over Haunting of Hill House, which is also pretty good. But this is a very good classic-y one to get into if you're a fan of gothic stories. So this follows two sisters whose entire family mysteriously die / are killed. And then the whole town sort of suspects them of doing this. And they are treated as outsiders, and the whole town sort of is very jealous of their wealth because they live in this big castle up on the hill. And it follows the sisters' story, and their relationship is like very central to the story. It's very, very sweet. It has really good depictions of the house and the environment, and just everything about it. The vibes are very, very good, very there. It's very autumn, spooky, sweet, good vibes. It's also very short. It's less than 150 pages, I think. So I would recommend reading this one if you want to read some Miss Shirley Jackson. Quick angle change, but I did want to read something to you from We Have Always Lived in the Castle because I wanted to sell it a little bit better than maybe I was. Just on the beginning here, it says, "My name is Mary Catherine Blackwood. I am 18 years old and I live with my sister Constance. I have often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf because the two middle fingers on both my hands are the same length, but I have had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself and dogs and noise. I like my sister Constance and Richard Plantagenet and Amanita Phalodis, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead." And then at the end here, it says, "You will be wondering about that sugar bowl, I imagine. Is it still in use? You are wondering, has it been cleaned? You may very well ask, was it thoroughly washed?" So, teaser for what is to come when you read this book, which you should be reading. Alrighty guys, that is our list. That is all of the classics that you are now required to read. It is your homework for the rest of the year. You got till the end of the year, okay? And then I want you to report back. But let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on them below. And let me know if you do decide to check any of these out, as you are now required to do, and what you think. I think this is a good beginner pile. They're all very, very easy to read. There's not any heavy language, and the stories are all actually interesting and fun and not like super stuffy. So, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Got it memorized?
Got it memorized?
And I will see all you in the next video. Later, Tater.